been in lending since started in 1991 doing small business lending in Hampton and Pocosin, of all places. There's not a lot of business lending in Pocosin, but I work for Nations Bank, which is a predecessor of Bank of America. And I worked for them for about 5 years. I did underwriting and did a lot of business loans. But then I actually opened my own business. I wanted to run a bunch of bicycle shops, retail bicycle stores. And I actually opened, my test store was in Farmville, Virginia, and I opened my second store in Lynchburg, Virginia. And I ran those until my wife and I adopted our daughter. And then I went, man, this is a lot of work. And I was commuting to Lynchburg 6 days a week, and I decided to sell my stores, and so I sold one and closed the other one. And I went back into banking, and the first bank I worked for was a giant bank. You know, it's not Wells Fargo size, but it was a pretty big bank. But I was talking to the local banker, and he said, the way I got back into banking is he said, do you guys know what a commercial lender gets paid? And I'm like, yeah, I think they get paid about X, and I said some really high number. And he goes, oh, because I think we're going to hire one. And I was like, okay, whatever. And a couple weeks later, he comes back and he's like, you used to be a commercial lender, right? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, we're going to hire one. I said, what do you pay me? And he said, X. And I was like, well, I'll take it. So anyway, that's how I got back. And that was a very small bank. They had like 10 or 15 branches, I can't remember. And then I went to work for Planters Bank when they had about 35 branches, and they became Stellar One, which is, I don't know how many branches that is, a lot. And then one of my customers hired me, a developer hired me to get a hotel loan for him in this big hotel project, and I got him the hotel loan, and then 2008 happened and everything went poof, and I was looking for a job back in the banking business, and I was going to go back to work for a really small community bank, and a friend of mine who I had worked with getting the hotel loan for the developer, who was a lending consultant, said, man, why are you going to work for them? Why don't you just do lending consulting? And I decided that I would try lending consulting, and I actually liked it, and it was running my own business again, and I had my own thing going on. And another opportunity came at Wells Fargo a couple of years ago, right when I had it in business. You know, owning your own business is an interesting thing, and like you say, some days you're like, man, I'm on my A game, I know exactly what I'm doing, and things are going great, and other days you're like, why did I ever do this? This is the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. And I was having one of those, this is the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life, and a friend of mine, Dave Phillips, that does a lot of SBA loans, called me and said, hey, I'm quitting my spot at Wells, and I told them they should hire you, and I'm like, I'm not going to work for Wells. And I ended up taking the job. So, and a couple of months ago, Bruce Brockwell actually, I worked with him in about 2004, called me up, and he's working at Eastern Virginia Bank, and he said, hey, I'm looking for somebody to do government guaranteed lending, because our person, just like the other time, had left. And I was like really anxious to get back into a smaller bank and a little bit more localized control and allowing me to have more control over what's going on. So they hired me just recently, and I've been having a lot of fun.
And we're so glad.
Yeah, Susan and I lent some money pretty close by where when I came in, I think she was sitting there going, I can do that, Rob, can we do that? I was like, yeah, just relax, it's gonna be okay. So as far as the way I'd like for this to go, I'll talk until you guys tell me to stop, but I'm hoping that I can fill up an hour, maybe I can. I would like you to stop me and ask me questions as we go along. And there are no dumb questions. I wish that somebody could have told me this before I did a lot of things. Like, a lot of you might be applying for loans, and if you apply for a loan with me, I'll pretend that you didn't ask me the question that you thought was really dumb if you want me to. You know, like, please ask me now, because it's better to know going in than to find out when you go in and go, well, I said this to the banker, and you don't know what makes the banker nervous. And I'm going to kind of try to tell you what makes bankers nervous. I'm going to tell you how we make our credit decisions. And then I'm going to tell you about the programs, if I have time, about what we have to offer. So this first piece here, I don't know, it's like the most basic thing that nobody ever really goes over with you when you're applying for credit, but it's what they teach you when you you're getting a degree in finance. It's like Finance 101. They go to this thing and they talk about the 5 C's of credit, and you're like, then you get into the real world and you're like, does anybody ever really look at that? and you think they don't, but like everything really goes back to it in the you know, when it really comes down to it. If you can kind of have a handle on all of these 5 C's of credit, well then you have a much better chance of getting a loan than you do if you have left out one or don't have some sort of idea of, you know, what to tell the banker when he says, what are you going to do for this? And you go, I don't know, I didn't think about that. And the banker goes, I wish they had thought about that, you know. So anyway, so I'm just going to start at the top. You know, we're talking about credit history. And this is talking about your credit score, your credit report. And I don't know how many of you have gotten your credit report before or have pulled a credit report, but I brought an example of a redacted credit report so you can kind of see what we're looking at when we say we've pulled your credit. This is what we're talking about. Has everybody like seen something similar to this before or pulled your credit? Okay, because this is like the way it looks when we get it. This particular person, I didn't really talk to my assistant before she pulled. This particular person has I wish I'd pulled one that had really bad credit because it would have been more interesting. This particular person has really good credit. Okay, so like their credit score is like an 850, which is like that number right there. You know, it's
better than mine.
That's better than mine. I mean, I don't really see very many 850s.
That's my husband. He's like.
Yeah. Okay, and like, so you would think a credit score of 800 means that, like, either you have open credit and you don't use it, or you've paid perfectly forever. This particular person is like paid perfectly forever. If you look at where it talks about 1s, 6s, and 7s down here, this is like the summary portion. This guy's like never missed a payment in his entire life for anything. He's never moved and not had a statement get to him and paid it 30 days late. He's never, so who knows, this guy might live in the same place forever. The thing that you don't see on his is you don't see any public records. And public records, okay, so like a bad public record is going to be like tax liens or judgments and that type of thing. But the other kind of public records that you're not expecting is that time 10 years ago when Verizon set you up with that phone deal, and then it turned out that that wasn't the deal. It was really $200 a month instead of the $20 a month they said, and you said, I'm not paying that, and you gave it back. And you gave them their phone back, and you thought everything was good, and then you go to apply for credit, and you're like, oh yeah, Verizon, 2008, dang. And my advice to you, like at this point when I'm talking to you, if you get to me and you still have that Verizon thing and it's $200, I'm like, look, just pay it. It's like, I know that they told you it was going to be 20 and it was I mean, like, because by the time you get to me, you should already have known what's on here, and you should try to clean it up, or at least if you know I'm going to see something that's going to make me uncomfortable, tell me about it first if you know. If like things will happen that make people have really low credit scores. They'll set up their automatic payments, but they'll be a month behind, and they'll get 30 days past due forever, and they'll never get notified because their payment's hitting 31 days late, so nobody's calling them, so they're not aware of it until they pull their credit, and they're like, I was 30 days past due for a year? You're like, yeah, I don't know. That's what it says. And this is something that you should really keep an eye on, and especially as you're getting ready to apply for credit, make sure that your credit score is okay. If you've messed up your credit, you can fix your credit in some cases. Okay, so this is not the banker, this is the lending consultant talking to you. This is what I used to do when I was a lending consultant. If you're getting ready to apply for credit and you have bad stuff on your credit, about 60 days before you apply, dispute everything. Okay? Everything that's on there, just write a letter to the bank and say, you guys are high, I'm disputing this, it's not true. You know, these things stay on for a lot of years, so you're looking at credit cards that you haven't had for 5 or 6 years. That place may either A, be out of business, B, have changed names more than one time, or any number of things. And when you put in a dispute to this is Experian, right? When you put in a dispute to Experian, they have to solve it.
This one's Equifax.
Equifax, excuse me. They have to solve it within 30 days. If they can't, and so within 30 days, so as soon as you dispute, they send a letter to the person, or probably electronically to the person that you say, you guys are high and I never knew you. And they have to send something back within 30 days that says, no, here's the proof, here's, because a lot of times may not, like back, like 10 years ago, they used to send you things in the mail pre-approved, and all you would activate them with a phone call, and they may forget to send you the thing that you signed, even say you had the account, and if they couldn't produce that, they had to take it off your credit.
Yeah, it
That's the
could
way
be,
worked.
it could be a service fee. You know, that happens a lot.
I've been running around with Capital One for almost 6 months. I'm like, I don't want to renew this card. Oh, you have to pay the service fee. No.
Yeah.
Right? No, I
Yeah,
know.
that happens
Right.
a lot.
Right.
The only other thing that I would really inject into what Rob's saying is it's really important to pull from all three credit bureaus. Because I have really seen some mess still show on, you know, it might be showing on TransUnion, but Equifax, it may be gone. So it's really important that you do pull from all three of those.
Right. And the thing you would expect to make you have great credit is to not really use a lot of credit. But the funny thing is that if you don't use any credit, your credit score goes down, and it goes down really low sometimes. Like if you don't have like a car loan or a credit card or something, I mean, or a mortgage. Like when I moved here to Richmond, I rented a house for a while because I knew my daughter was going to go to high school, so we didn't want to buy a house, so I rented a house. And I was like, why is my credit score going down? It's like, oh, I don't have a mortgage anymore. You know, now it looks like I don't own a house, or that, you know, it's just a different thing whether you have a mortgage or not. So I had like one credit card and one thing, and it's like my credit score's going down. I'm like, it's kind of a drag, but I mean, it wasn't getting really low or anything, but I was just like, why? So the things that drive the credit score are the things that affect it the most. Missing payments. If you miss a payment, your credit score goes down like 20 or 30 points. Inquiries. So when you go to, this is what used to happen frequently, is you would go to a place that doesn't finance its own cars. Like you go to some guys, although, you know, highbrow and selling nice cars, they might sell only BMWs and Mercedes, but when they go to get you financed, they shoot it out to 6 finance companies. And all of a sudden you have 6 inquiries on the same day, and the credit reporting people think that you're applying for credit everywhere and trying to get credit, and your credit score goes down like 15 points in inquiry. So that, you know, you can have a 700 credit score and all of a sudden have a 600 because you went to the car dealership and they shot you everywhere.
Like big car dealerships or these little local
Not usually,
guys?
because usually, well, nowadays, not, you know, like most people don't do that. Like when you're buying a new car, you're usually thinking, I'm going to either get financing at the dealership through, you know, Toyota Credit or GMAC or whatever. You know, you're going through that, and they can handle a lot of different credit profiles in those places. I mean, they can handle from low credit score to high credit score. It's when you're on the margins where you're getting down pretty low. And just for reference, 640 is kind of a cutoff for a lot of different banks, the SBA, and a lot of places. So you want your credit score to be over a 640. If your credit score is not high because you don't use any credit, get a credit card, use it to put gas in your tank and pay it off every month, and that will make your credit score go up pretty significantly pretty quickly. So anyway, does anybody have any questions about credit reports or how we use them or what we're using? Oh man, medical bills are a pain. I crashed my bike 5 years ago, and I just got a bill from the ambulance company. I broke my collarbone. I had an accident rider on my insurance because I rode bikes, and I was like, well, you know, you're eventually going to crash, so. So I had an accident rider that was like zero deductible, and it was for everything. So I had to have surgery on my collarbone and all this, that, and the other, and I went to the emergency room, and I got a ride in the ambulance. So I have no idea where this bill came from and why it's still there, but I'm just like, you know what? I've changed insurance twice, 3 times since then. I'm just gonna pay. It's $500, but it's like, it's ouch. I don't want to pay $500, but I know that the hassle of trying to get my old insurance to cover that, and these people are now that I know that they've found me somehow at my new house, which I have no idea how they found me, that they know where I live and they'll take a judgment against me because now they know where to take a judgment against me if I don't pay it. But medical claims have a much lower effect on your credit score than anything else. Like if a doctor, a dentist, a hospital puts something on your credit report, they're gonna, and it really is they typically are judgments, in your favor. So if you own real estate and you ever sell your real estate, your lawyer will have to settle that up when you sell your house if there's any if you make any money. So they luckily affect you the least because they're the thing that are most out of your control. And like in my case, do I really owe that $525? Do I know if my insurance company paid it? I have no clue. But they think I owe it, and I'm pretty sure, and I know I took a ride in their ambulance, so I'm gonna pay it because I don't want to mess up my credit. So I could try to fight it, but I don't know if it's worth the effort, you know? And I could try to get the insurance company to pay it, but I really don't think that's worth the effort. But
do you understand what he's saying there, Catherine? Because I see it happen all the time.
Yeah.
With medical, they can put a judgment against if you own a home, and you may not even realize it until you go to sell your house.
right.
Yeah, it actually happened to me. I was refinancing, and it was the wrong Susan Young. So I had to dispute it, but, you know, it was like running 2 days down to the courthouse, and, you know, it's just really inconvenient. But things like that happen. If they can't find the right one, they'll find one that's got a similar name. So
Yeah.
the only other thing that I would add is be savvy about your score. You can go to annualcreditreport.com once a year, pull from all 3 of your credit bureaus. If you're trying to see what your score is for a particular reason, pay the little bit, $8-12 to get the score. Especially if you're like car shopping or you know you're getting ready to apply for a loan, be pretty savvy about what your score is. That number one will keep that dealer from running it everywhere. If you know that you know they require an 800 to get a 0% offer and you don't have an 800, you tell them up front you don't want your credit run everywhere. You know that's not what your score is. I mean, you take control of that.
And that won't ding your credit if you go to these
If
things.
you are pulling your score and
does,
your
yeah.
credit report yourself, it does not count against you. Another thing that coming from a larger bank after 38 years, large commercial banks are not as hands-on as small community banks, whether it be us or someone else that you do business with. But one thing that they will not so much do is have the conversation with you as much as the community banks will. So if you come in and apply for something, the automatic thing they're going to do is put that application in, whether you're sitting there telling them, but you know, I really think the credit's not going to work out. You're going to find more with your community banks, the commercial lenders or small business bankers are going to have a conversation with you more instead of just putting applications on the system to ding your credit. So be very careful about that as well.
Right, and the other thing that shows up in the public records of your credit report are tax liens and other liens. And if you're having a problem with the IRS and you get a tax lien, do whatever it takes to get it fixed, because tax liens take priority over everything, and you're gonna have a huge problem borrowing money if you have tax liens. So it's something you got to deal with prior to applying for a loan if you have tax issues. You know, back taxes. When I owned my business, it was really weird. They came in one day and they said they had an issue with how I was calculating my payroll tax and claimed that I was behind. And I went and talked to my accountant. I knew I wasn't behind. I thought I was all okay and everything was cool. Well, like, my wife worked in the clerk's office in Farmville where my thing was, and she's like, "We just got a tax lien," and I'm like, you know, recorded at the courthouse, and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, "Yeah, the state tax people just recorded." I'm like, and it was like a couple $1,000, and I was like, "What's going on?" And like, I call them up, and they're like, "Oh yeah," and they're like, "Oh yeah, I guess we just made a mistake." But I'm just like, if my wife hadn't worked there, I wouldn't have known until I applied for something. They said, "Oh, you got a tax lien on yourself." I'm like, "Really?" You know.